going to put 3 holes on the spine edge in order to run the cords through, and then the board will be attached. Yes. Now that we've made our way into the shop, we have our apron on. We're ready to start some gluing. So we finished up the sewing last episode or so, and today we are going to do the rounding and the backing, which is kind of a critical part of building a book. I've got all the glue sorted out. I've got all my tools ready. So yeah, we'll get set up and get started on what are we going to do first? I guess the rounding. Okay. Hope it goes well. So the objective here is we want to create something that looks like this. So this is a copy of Trails Plowed Under, Frederick Remington. So as you can see, all along that edge, there's that little shoulder, and you can see the spine is ever so slightly curved. And every book requires a different amount of rounding and backing. Just depends on how thick it is or how thin it is, how thick are your boards. Is it been rounded and backed before? Does it have a shape that it wants to go back to and resume? So there's lots of things that you have to kind of, well, I got to think about that, and now we're going to accommodate it, and then you can get started and get the work done so we can move to the next phase. So I have, as you can see here, it's all sewn. Last time you saw it, it was about 1/3 the way done. Turned out reasonably well. You have to make sure this edge is kind of exposed enough to get all of the glue. We're gonna start. First of all, we get the cords, which are frayed and ready to go. We get those out of the way under these scrap boards, exposing the spine. We'll take and apply our 50-50 from the spine out both ways. We make sure that it's soaked in pretty good. We want it. We want the whole spine to be kind of one piece that we can manipulate afterwards when we do the next step, the backing. Okay, so let's apply the glue. Right, the 50-50 is all stirred up, nice and ready to go. There's no lumps, no bumps. It's you want to make sure that it is 50-50 and not 70-30. Sometimes one of the halves will kind of start to settle, so you want to make sure that when you use it, you stir it up, make sure that it is 50-50. Okay, so we're going to use some fairly generous amounts of glue on this. I'm going to set that over there so I don't spill it. And we'll start at the center cord, and we'll just go towards the outside edge. Not sure why we do that, but that's what it says in class, so I guess I'll do that. So as I mentioned, we want to make sure that the spine is, soaked pretty good. We've got some work to do, and we need it to be flexible enough. I've got to remember, keep going out. This is where our waist signatures on the outside, on the verso and the recto of the text block come in very handy. Keeps all the glue off anything that's, you know, on the interior of the book, which we do not want. So I'm just going to make sure that's rubbed in there, especially on these top and bottom edges, because those are the ones that we're going to try to curve, or we are going to curve, and make that little shoulder for the board to fit into. Okay. I'm just going to put a little on my finger here, and we'll just make sure. Got some there, I'll just use. Okay, I think that's going to be pretty good for what we want to do today. And we are going to flatten the 3 chords that the text block is sewing around, because we are not making raised bands. So I'm just going to do that right now. And this will give us a nice smooth spine. Okay, this is going to take me a minute or two, so I'm going to flatten these 3, and then we will get to the next step. Well, we're waiting for the spine and the glue to all kind of set up a little bit and get a bit tacky. You don't want it wet, but you don't want it solid dry either, because we need, like I mentioned, we need to manipulate that edge. I want to show you the tool, I guess, a machine. I'm not sure what what we should call it. It is one of my most prized possessions, because my very good friend Al, who I've known since elementary school, which is a long time ago, he there you can see it. That's what I use for my backing press, and Al put it all back together. It was unusable, and I said, hey, can you sort that out for me? Do you think you could fix the bend? And when he brought it back, he'd done all this beautiful woodwork, added new hardware. It was just gorgeous. Boy, what can you say about old friends and good friends? Just look at that. It is a piece of art. So this is it, as you can see. It's absolutely beautiful. So he repainted all of this, put in like new hardware. He did the woodwork here, added this part. Look at this. Wow. Added the little wood trim down here, repainted the whole thing. That's just amazing, the work he can do. But most importantly, when I bought this, one of these 2 blades had a wow in it, and it just wasn't functional. As you can see, I put a book in here as an example. It's our Frederick Remington book. And you have to be very precise. So let me see if I can show you. So you see how that edge is just on here, so that it's, when we get our book in here, we can do this sort of work and round that spine to accommodate the board. So I've got the text block here in between. I'm going to do this edge first, because I can't get both of my marks to line up all at the same time. So, and that happens a lot. It's the most frustrating, one of the most frustrating things you can have to do with bookbinding is this. So I'm going to do this edge first, and then when I'm happy with the rounding, I'll come around and I'll do the other edge. Get it all nice and symmetrical. So you just do this. We're just taking that edge over here. It's starting to dry out because I'm fooling around with cameras and stuff, so I got to get this done. Okay, I'll be back. Adding the rounding is you got to be careful. You don't want to add too much, but you need enough to fit the board in that shoulder. So you start off just with this simple technique while it's still flexible. The glue's still a little bit wet. It's tacky, but it's kind of solid, but malleable. So you push against the foredge here with your thumb and pull the spine towards you. And again, you don't have to do a whole bunch, right? Because we're going to take it to the press as well when we're done with this part. So this is just to kind of get the shape started. So do it this side, flip it over, and again, do it this side. And you know, you don't want to use like every muscle you got on this. You just want to firm and just pull and just feel that edge round over a little bit. So I'm pretty happy with the rounding and backing that we've just completed. You can see right there in the shoulder, created that space, which is the same thickness as this board, right? So it slides in there. And as you can see, I can run my finger over the spine right onto the board, and there's no lip, there's no bump. So when we pull the leather over this, it should be seamless. That's the theory anyway. And of course, the grain of the board is vertical to match the book, so everything runs up and down. I've marked the square on the board, which is very important. We'll see that as we go forward. And this is the square. This is the bit of board that will be visible, the top, on the foredge, and on the bottom edge when the book is closed, so that all you can see until you open the book is the little bit that we leave on the edges, which is the square. And it can be all sorts of sizes. Just depends on the size of the text block, size of the boards, the book itself, and what looks good. It's kind of up to the bookbinder. So we've preparation. I have recombed our cords. They are really nice and smooth and thin. There's no glue along the spine edge, because again, any little lumps or bumps that we see either will be seen through the leather or we have to deal with later. So now's the time just to keep everything as smooth and clean as possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to visually take the text block, place it on this board, and then I'm going to make some marks so that we're going to put 3 holes on the spine edge in order to run the cords through, and then the board will be attached. I've lined up the text block with the board underneath, with just the square exposed on the exterior. And when you line up the text block on the board, you have to be wary of the waste papers that you have in place, that you don't line the waste paper up on the bottom here with the line, because the waste paper is going to go away at some point. We want to make sure that the text block is lined up on the square at the very top edge of the text block, not these waste papers. So I really like the way that looks. So let us make some marks. Made a little tool. It's 5/8 of an inch wide. Lay that along the spine here. Draw a line so we know that's 5/8 of an inch away. And now we're going to mark where do the cords come across onto the board, and we're just going to make a mark right there at each spot. kind of less is more. In terms of the size of these notches and whatnot, first book I ever bound, everything was huge, and I had to go in and refill some of the spaces, and it was just because I was afraid that I wasn't leaving enough. But really, that old adage, less is more, is very applicable here. So we mark these spots, 1, 2, and 3, and then we'll do the same on the other board, of course, and then we're going to take either one of these little devils that are very sharp, or my scalpel, whatever, and I'm going to come and cut a notch in each of these marks so that we can thread these guys through. Decided to go with the scalpel, so of course scalpels are very, very sharp, and just checking, yeah, that's a pretty new blade. So I want to make the cuts a little wider at the spine edge and narrower towards the interior. So I'll just do that, and I'm just gonna, and I want to make these notches really, I don't need them any deeper than the thickness of the cords. Right? I just want them to fit right in there. So I'll take my best guess here. Better to start a little shallow than too thick, but if I do go too thick, I can come and glue little pieces back in as needed. And we'll just, and there we go. That is a little too shallow. I want to take one more layer of the board out of there. And there it comes. So I've kind of got, there we go. You can see we've got a nice little notch there that will accommodate the thickness of the cord. So I'll come and do all these 2 notches, and then I'll go do the other board, and then we'll punch some holes in there. Here's what we use to bang our holes through the boards, and yeah, it's a chisel. You can see the width of it roughly there. So I have done most of them. I'll just show you. We just take chisel, put it in our spot that we have marked, bang it a few times, make sure that we have made a nice little opening there. I'm going to tape a piece of Mylar between the board and the text block here, because we're going to take our paste and soak these up so things get a little gooey and messy. So we just want to avoid any, paste where we don't want it. So what we're going to do is soak these cords really nicely so that they're good and soaked, because we've got to push them through the openings we just made with the chisel. Okay. This is always a challenge, because you gotta get them through without pulling the other ones out that you already push through. So usually I have my busted dental tool that's got rounded ends. It comes in handy for all sorts of things, bookbinding. I don't know how well you can see that, but there is one thread through. And then we're going to push this one through, hopefully. And there it goes. Number 3. So again, these openings in the board that we punched with the chisel, we try to keep as, to a minimum, because we just have to fill them in and make them smooth when we're all done. So can make threading these through a little tricky sometimes. Okay, so there you go. You can see how those cords fit right into those notches that we cut into these board edges. And we have to make sure that our square is lined up properly to where we want it to be. And that looks like that is the spot. Now this isn't permanent right now. We can still manipulate, move boards around, and adjust as we go. Okay, so there, that's basically what it is. I'm just going to take this off of here. That is basically what it is we want to do. Get those in there like that. So I'll finish this side. I'll whip the book around, do the other side. You just have to do some hammering and some more pasting and do the interior, and then that part of the process is done. And I think that's where we will bring this part of the process to an end, and we will come back with a part 2 and maybe a part 3. Okay, thanks for watching. We'll see you very soon. The next step in the binding of the Huckleberry Finn book.